Welcome to another episode of the MMA Lockcast. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMALOTN. This week we're going over UFC 255, headlined by Deiveson, Figueiredo, and Alex Perez, as well as Valentina Shevchenko, defending her flyweight title against Jennifer Maia. Should be a fun fight, not the most name-worthy card here, but a lot of fun fights for sure. I had a ton of fun breaking down these fights. One of the fights that I do want to highlight is Brandon Royval versus Brandon Moreno. That should be absolute bonkers. I cannot wait for that fucking fight. Not to mention the rematch of Paul Craig and Shogun. Mike Perry versus Tim Means should be a great fight as well. I believe Mike Perry was originally scheduled to fight Robbie Lawler. Fortunately, Robbie Lawler pulls out, and we get a decent replacement in Tim Means. Very, very much looking forward to that fight. The return of the viral sensation Joaquin Buckley, I should say, against Jordan Wright. That should be a great fight. Antonina Shevchenko against Ariane Lipski. That should be a great fight too. The return of Jouban. Luis Cosce, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He's coming back after his Dana White Contender Series win. A lot of high praise on that kid. A lot of people looking forward to seeing what he brings to the table in the UFC. And then Daniel Rodriguez versus Nicolas Dalby should be a phenomenal fight too. So ton of fights that I'm really looking forward to on this card. Some people may say it's not pay-per-view worthy. I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? I'm watching every card regardless, so I don't really care. Before we get into the breakdowns, though, let's go over the last event just as I always do. And just as we always do over here, we don't hide from our losses. We are completely transparent. That's why we track. That's why we, go over to the Bet MMA tips and track our bets just as we always do. So there is absolutely no humming or hawing or this guy deleted this pick or whatever the fuck it is. It's never like that around here because I want to be transparent with you guys. You guys know what my picks are on a weekly basis, but I still want to own up to my losses whenever I incur those losses, and then brag about my fucking wins whenever I win those wins because I show you guys my losses. So the wins feel even better. All right, let's go over this real quick so that I don't have to cry too much about it. Let's start off with the lock of the night play. It absolutely burns on us. -5 units on Abdul Razak Al Hassan. We had him at -240 against Chaos Williams. Chaos Williams can throw a straight punch and, in fact, has a ton of power behind it too. So that one absolutely sucked to lose. Yeah, not much more I can really say about that one, That one was a tough one to lose. That one was kind of like, almost betting against Francis Ngannou. Like, you're always going to have a guy that's technically much more better. But when it comes down to, like, raw power, these guys have it. And I will say this, it was not just power from Chaos Williams that night. It was technical striking, too. That was a punch right down the middle. Beautiful, beautiful counter to a leg kick that Abdul was throwing. And it landed right on the chin, absolutely dusting him off of his feet. That one was tough to watch, but it is what it is. This is MMA. That's why we watch the sport. So -5 units there. Then we had another loss on the Dog of the Night play, -1 unit at +125 on the under 2.5 on Alex Moreno and Reese McKee. Those guys were going to war for 3 rounds. For 15 minutes, they were going at it. Neither of them fell. I was happy with the odds I got on there, so -1 unit there. Also, we had a loss on the parlay. So we had Rafael Dos Anjos parlayed with Kay Hansen. I did a live deciding splits earlier today on this the Kay Hansen fight. I thought Kay Hansen did enough to win rounds 1 and 3. It is what it is. Judging is judging. And then RDA obviously comes through for us. But regardless, that's a -2 units there because of that Kay Hansen loss. And then the 2 bets we did win. I had 1.5 units on Sean Strickland at +102. Happy to get the underdog odds on him. Not happy that I didn't go a little bit harder because I was quite confident in that spot. I really, really like that spot. But yeah, that comes through for us. Even though the night was a losing night, it's good to have the silver linings of, like, getting fights like this Sean Strickland one and even the Tony Gravely one. Getting those ones correct, especially because they're the most debated fights on the card and their odds being as close as they are, those ones feel super fucking nice. So, like I said, plus 1.53 units on Sean Strickland, and plus 1 unit on Tony Gravely, as I bet him at minus 150 for 1.5 units. That one hits. And all in all, we get minus 5.47 units. That Al Hassan lock that I played really fucked me that night. As I'm sure it did for a lot of people. I'm sure it busted a lot of parlays, just like Tanner Bozer did the weekend before. There's always going to be that pie shooter, like my man Cody Saftik says. And tonight, or that night, it was Abdul Razak Al Hassan. So, like, once again, minus 5.47 units there. We're back to free picks. However, the Patreon is still live and living. That's the next thing I'll get into, is just plugging the Patreon for you guys real quick. Even though I'll have free picks for the next 3 winning events at least. The picks won't come out for free until Friday. So as soon as I make my picks, I'll be posting them straight to Patreon, so everybody on Patreon can get them at the odds that I got them at, or at least close to the odds that I got them at. And then I release it to the public on Friday. No guarantees that the lines will be the same, which is the benefit of being on the Patreon. And not to mention, they get early access to the breakdowns that you guys are about to see. They get access to the best bets and props article that I drop on Fridays. There's a great Discord channel where we, I have a community picks channel where we just talk about all other sports and all other bets, and everybody's very, very helpful in helping each other out, trying to find the best spots. And then even when we're watching the event live, there's a solid live event channel that we have where we try to, pinpoint solid live betting opportunities, or we just talk shit. It's a lot of fun in that channel. And then obviously, it's a great way to really get my thoughts on a lot of these fights rather than just hitting me up through Twitter. And there's a couple other good little perks on the Patreon. Again, it's only $5 a month. We're up to 172 patrons. Fucking killing it. Absolutely killing it. Loving the support on there. You guys are absolute monsters. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Everybody understands where I'm coming from, understands that there's going to be losing nights here and there, but they also understand that I can give them solid advice in terms of what to be betting on for the UFC events upcoming. And not only are they doing that, but they're also helping your boy, allowing me to eventually do this as a full-time thing. The more that this Patreon grows, the closer I can get to leaving that 9 to 5, so I don't have to be up to fucking 1 a.m. doing these videos for you guys. I can do it during the day and then spend time with my family, but then also commit more time to giving you guys quality content and quality analysis on some of these fights and these matchups coming up. So shout out to everybody on the Patreon. Once again, if you haven't signed up and you are interested in it, the link is in the description below. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on one of those podcast platforms, it's in the description. I'm always going to harp on it because I did some market research on my Patreon. It seems like the vast majority of the people coming over to the Patreon are people that listen to my podcast. So I'm going to plug it all the time to get to that point that I can finally leave with a 9 to 5. Once I leave the 9 to 5, then I won't plug the Patreon as much, but I'm going to keep doing so. If you want me to stop talking about it, hop on the Patreon. Also, one thing that I do believe will help some membership sales is there is no long-term commitment with the Patreon. You can unsubscribe at any point. You subscribe, you pay $5 right on the dot, right away. But after a day or two, if you still don't like it or anything like that, you can unsubscribe, and there's no long-term strings attached, nothing like that. It is literally a month-to-month thing. Once you sign up, you pay that day, and then every first of the month, you pay again. That's all it is. So again, if you pay the $5, you don't like the outcome of the fights for the coming weekend, you can quickly hit unsubscribe and you won't be charged any further. Okay, now shut the fuck up about the Patreon. Let's get into the breakdowns. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope I can give you guys some solid reads for this card, and we can make up for the blunder that was last week. Louis Cosce versus Sasha Palatnikov, and we got minus 370 on Cosce and plus 310 on Palatnikov. So let's start off with Louis, whose brother was actually supposed to fight on this card as well. I believe he was supposed to fight Nicolas Dalby. Unfortunately, Ariane Cosce has to pull out. I'm not entirely sure why, but his brother's still on the card, and people are still excited for that. So if most people remember, Louis Cosce was fought on the Contender Series with his brother on the same night, and they both went out there and got, I believe both of them got first round finishes. Definitely Louis got that first round finish over Victor Reina, where he showed his athleticism and his power right off the bat. And he's made a name off of himself for pretty much doing exactly that, which is getting his opponents out of there ASAP. 1, 2, 3, 4 of his wins have come within 1 minute. but pretty much all of his wins have come in the first round. Not one fight has seen the second round, which is crazy, and he's going out there and absolutely dusting these guys. Obviously, a little bit of skepticism towards the opponents that he's been fighting on the regional scene. However, he's still going out there and getting crazy victories, and quickly too. The only two fights that I have access to in terms of footage is his fight against Gregory McCowan, and then obviously Victor Reina. The McCowan fight was done even before it started, got that done within 8 seconds. That guy did not seem like he wanted to be in there at all. And then Victor Reina obviously, ate the first couple of barrages that was coming his way from Cosce, but then Cosce was able to, land a beautiful left hook that dropped Reina and then followed up with some ground and pound to get that fight done 1 minute and 12 seconds into the first round. And that fight was 7 seconds away from actually being the longest fight in his career, which is crazy. So he's 7-0 now, all first round finishes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them by KO, 2 of them by submission. The kid looks like he has it all, but for me, you really gotta, put these performances together in the UFC against legitimate competition to really, catch my eye and to really, to seem like you have the potential to be one of the best in the division and the best in the UFC. Unfortunately for him, in terms of his longevity, this fight against Sasha Palatnikov doesn't really get to show us what he's truly capable of. So I'm fully expecting him to continue his trend of going out there and pummeling dudes within that first round, and I'm fully expecting him to do that against Sasha Palatnikov here. Going through the tape of Palatnikov, he's 5-2. Most recently, beating a guy that is 3-4 in a fight that the guy looked like he didn't even want to be there. You see Sasha's confidence kind of just glimmer through when he's fighting guys that he knows he can go out there and beat. But then when he comes up against a little bit of adversity, it gets a little bit sketchy for him. Like the Munir Luziz fight, which was the second last fight that he had before he's coming into the UFC here. He got hurt and rocked by Munir. Munir gets a little bit overzealous, and we see Sasha actually get his back for a certain, like a couple seconds, and then Munir quickly spins out of it, gets back to the feet, and then continues to pummel him there. And that was, a great victory for Munir Luziz there. But, yeah, it's tough. It's tough to make a case for Sasha here, even given that he's gone, or had much more cage time as a professional than Luis. But there isn't really anything that you can point to be like, okay, this is where Sasha should have him beat. Because there's still so much more of Luis that we need to see. However, I don't think that we're still going to see much more from Luis here, as I do believe that Sasha will kind of crumble under the pressure that Luis is going to go out there and put on him. Sasha does get hit. He's quite hittable. He doesn't really have the greatest striking defense. It seems like he does his best work when he's able to push guys up against the cage and kind of just lean on them or even get them down and kind of just do some good work on top like he did in his first 5-round fight against Sung Woon Sun. Unfortunately for him here, I just think that he's beat. It's going to be tough. Munir was pretty much landing on him at will, and Munir is, very good in terms of just striking from a distance and landing on guys and not really getting hit. But in past fights, we have seen him get hit. And it's just not a good look, especially when you're fighting a power puncher like Cosce. So you guys know me. I'm not really behind betting on guys that have just that one quick path to victory, and we haven't really seen much from them. However, I think this is a perfectly matched up fight to make Cosce look good. And unfortunately for Palatnikov, he's going to have to drop his first UFC fight here. And it really goes to show what this COVID era is doing and the type of talent that we're bringing into the UFC, because the UFC is just looking for guys to kind of get in there. I'm not sure if this is a short notice one for Cosce. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. It looks like this fight was literally just made, but it makes no sense. Yeah, I mean, no, pre-COVID, you're not getting a guy like Sasha Palatnikov getting signed to the UFC. Shout out to his agency, Ruby Sports and Entertainment. Shout out Daniel Rubenstein. But man, this is a tough signing. You got a guy that's 1-1 in his last 2. Lost, obviously got knocked out in that one loss, and then goes out there and beats a guy that's 3-4. Again, a guy that does not look like he wanted to be in there at all. Yeah, very tough look for the UFC for signing a guy like this. You need to be a little bit more convincing on the regional scene. Yeah, I'm going with Luis Cosce here, without a doubt about it. I think he gets it done in the first round. And the interesting thing here is the over/under just recently dropped, and the over/under is currently set at 1.5, with the under being -125, -130 on a couple spots. So I do like Cosce here. I think he's going to get it done relatively quickly, and I really do like the under 1.5. So if you really like Cosce here and think he's going to win, instead of parlaying him at -370, let's just hit that under. That under is looking really nice to me right now, so I might have to take a closer look at that. But I do think Cosce gets it done. I think he gets it done early. He's going to have too much for Palatnikov. He looks way stronger too, way quicker. And obviously, we know that power is there too. So I'm going with Cosce to win this fight in the first round. But that under 1.5 is quite sexy to me here. So once again, Luis Cosce via first round finish, KO or submission, whatever the hell he wants. Kyle Daukaus versus Dustin Stoltzfus. We got -275 on Kyle Daukaus and +235 on the German Dustin Stoltzfus. So let's start off with the self-proclaimed German. He's actually American. He was born over in Pennsylvania, I believe. Or sorry, yeah, he was born in Pennsylvania. Then he moved over to Germany. I'm not sure if it was entirely to study or what it was, but he did end up getting into MMA, and he put together a solid record for himself when he was over there, fighting mainly in a promotion called We Love MMA. And I find it fucking hilarious though when with some of these some of these German MMA promotion names, like they're like overcorrecting for the unfortunate history that their country has had, but some of the names for their for their MMA promotions are fucking hilarious. So like there's We Love MMA, there's Fair FC, and then there's another one called Respect FC or some shit like that. It's hilarious to see the type of work that they're putting in to do that. But let's get back to this fight. So with Dustin Stoltzfus, it's still a little bit difficult to really get a grasp on what he's about and what his style really is. In the Joseph Pfeiffer fight that he had against on the Contender Series, Pfeiffer seemed to have a really good a good fight leading up to that arm injury that he incurred, but he was doing good on the feet, pretty much doing a solid job of touching up Dustin, and even got him down pretty well too. Dustin showed some good guard play in terms of threatening for submissions and kind of just striking from the bottom and keeping things tight, so it was a little bit harder for Pfeiffer to really get anything off. But Pfeiffer did manage to fight through a little bit and landed some good shots himself. Stoltzfus was able to reverse the position, get back to his feet, and then kind of slam Pfeiffer. And then obviously, we saw what happened with Pfeiffer's arm. The two fights before that against Jonas Bildstein and Nihad Nasufovic, one of them he won by punches, and then the second one he won via twister. But both of those fights, it looks like he was a guy that was quite timid in terms of striking. He seemed quite calculated in terms of just waiting for his openings and then going out there and striking, getting leg kicks off and, some solid punches and solid counters too. The Jonas Bildstein one was kind of vicious because they had this weird clinch position, and then Dustin kind of tripped Jonas as Jonas was moving backwards, and as Jonas was moving backwards, he ate a beautiful punch from Dustin that pretty much floored him, and then he followed up with some ground and pound. But that kid was out as soon as he got hit with that right hand. I'm still trying to get a feel for him. It seems like he has solid striking, but the one issue that I did find in the fights that I was watching of his is that he did have some issues with his takedown defense. And to have issues with your takedown defense against a guy like Kyle Daukaus is going to be some trouble. And now I completely understand why Kyle Daukaus is a -275 favorite. -275. Makes absolute sense. This line has been getting steamed as well too. It opened up -245. We saw it get up to -225 with a little love coming on Dustin, and then eventually the love for Kyle started to rein in. So Kyle, obviously, he has a brother, Chris Daukaus, who fights in the heavyweight division, but Kyle Daukaus slightly smaller, but has ridiculously long limbs. His reach is 76 inches. He's 6'3", fighting at 185 pounds. I think he has a ton of talent and a ton of potential as well too. Most of his wins obviously coming via submission, via choke. Yeah, I like what I'm seeing from the kid. He could use a little bit of work on the feet, obviously. He did get rocked a couple times by Stefan Regman and Nolan Norwood, even in the Brendan Allen fight. Allen did had a little bit of success in terms of trying to hurt him, but obviously it looked like Kyle was a little bit better on the feet than Brendan Allen, and we saw Brendan Allen's lack of striking defense this past weekend when he fought a super high level striker in Sean Strickland. But Kyle Daukaus had some success, especially in that third round, where he was finally able to get the back of Brendan Allen, where we saw the gas tank of Allen kind of fail him. And Allen did a really good job in terms of just staying in there, fighting off the submissions. And Kaldakis showed a ton of heart in terms of being able to, maintain that position as well as he did, given all the damage that he accrued in those first two rounds, and did a solid job in terms of controlling Allen there. Unfortunately, he gave up the first two rounds, which is why he ended up losing the decision. But this seems like a little bit better of a fight for him. Again, still trying to get a full grasp of what Dustin has on the feet. Again, very calculated, low output, which is kind of concerning. But yeah, I do believe that Kyle will be successful in dragging this fight to the feet or to the ground, and I do believe that we'll see him pull off a submission. Now, don't get the fact that Dustin Stoltzfus has a couple submission victories on his record, even a twister on his record too. Don't get that mixed up with the fact that Kaldakis is gonna be the better jiu-jitsu guy here. Dustin. That fight against Nahad, where he did pull off the twister, that came in the third round where, Dustin did a solid amount of work against Nihad in that first and second round, even hurt and dropped him in that second round. And then in the third round, it just kind of seemed like he was continuing what was going on in the third round. Nahad really didn't have much in that. And I don't even think he saw that twister coming either, which was very, very impressive from Dustin to sneakily set that up and then eventually pull it off. But I think he's going to have to do a lot more than that to get Kaldakis out there with the twist or even a submission of any kind. I think if Dustin gets this done, it's going to be on the feet, and if Kyle gets this done, this will be on the ground. So whether it's a submission or even just a decision victory with controlling Dustin the entire time, that's the way to go. So in my opinion, I believe the line is a little bit wide. I do like Kyle Daukaus to win this fight. I do think he gets it done via submission. The over-under is currently at 2.5. I wouldn't mind taking a little bit of a poke at the under 2.5. Minus 105 is not that bad of a line. I think both guys have finishing capabilities, but I do think that Kaldakis could be more successful with pulling off a submission. Now, one of his more famous or more preferred chokes would be the Darce choke, and that's something that he's able to set up pretty easily whenever guys are trying to get up. When they're trying to get up, they kind of put their head into the chest of their opponents and they try to get off like that. But while they're doing that, Kaldakis does a really good job of just getting his hands in position, setting up that choke, setting up the lock, and then just squeezing. And with his range, with his reach, with his arm length, with how weird his body is built, he's just able to pull off some of these submissions from weird positions. So I do like how Daukaus to win this fight. I will say that the line is a little bit too wide, possibly a parlayable spot, but we do still have some questions about Kyle and how he would deal with a guy like Dustin on the feet, depending on how long the fight stays on the feet. But what studying has shown me is that Dustin can be taken down. He doesn't put up the biggest fight. Obviously, Kyle might not get it the first time or the second time, but I could see him getting it eventually. So hopefully in that amount of time, he doesn't get knocked out or anything like that. But I could definitely see Kyle taking this to the ground and pulling off a submission sometime in the first or second round. But the under 2.5 at minus 105 plus money as well, plus 100 at Pinnacle is very, very enticing. So that's something to look forward to. All right. Final prediction, I'm going to say Kyle Daukaus to win this fight via second round submission. Alan Jouban versus Jared Gooden. We got minus 140 on the returning Alan Jouban and plus 120 on the UFC newcomer Jared Gooden, I should say. A lot of people are getting him confused with Jared Gordon, who fights at 145 pounds and sometimes 155. But this is Jared Gordon fighting at 170 pounds and fights like an absolute tank. But let's start off on the other side with Alan Jouban. And one thing I do want to iterate actually is this fight did open at a pick'em, and now the money is slowly coming in on Alan Jouban, and I kind of understand it once you really start to run the tape. However, there are a lot of question marks regarding the X factors around Alan Jouban. So he hasn't fought since April of 2019 at UFC 236, where he lost a close decision, a split decision, albeit to Dwight Grant. They went at it for 3 rounds, a lot of movement, a lot of pitter-patter shots. Dwight Grant did land probably the most significant blow in the second round when he kind of hurt Allen, but outside of that, it was just a lot of pitter-patter back and forth. We did see Jouban go for a takedown near the ending of the fight to hopefully steal the victory for him. Unfortunately for him, it was not enough to get the victory there, but one of the issues here with Alan Jouban has always been the questioning of his chin. A lot of people are saying the guy's very chinny, almost anybody can knock him out, and I find that to be a little bit interesting because he's only been finished with punches twice in his career. Once by Nico Price, who pretty much can put anybody out, and then Albert Tumenov, if a lot of people remember him, he was a very high-level fighter. I'm not sure why the UFC let him go, but he is a guy that, could put out a lot of guys as well. But in terms of getting knocked down, he's been knocked down 3 times in his UFC career. He's had how many fights? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 fights, and he's been knocked down 3 times. Obviously by Nico Price, by Albert Tumenov, and then Matt Dwyer, who's a very long and rangy fighter. So I could absolutely see why and how he got knocked down there. But he's managed to not get knockdowns against Bilal Muhammad, Mike Perry, Ben Saunders, Gunnar Nelson, even Dwight Grant, who kind of hits quite hard himself too. If you guys remember, Dwight Grant rocked Daniel Rodriguez before he eventually got taken out by Daniel Rodriguez. But Grant definitely has a lot of power behind his punches, and Alan Jouban ate a lot of them. So let me just dispel that for you guys real quick. But another X factor here is also Alan Jouban's age. He's been off for it's nearing 2 years now. It's just under 5 months from 2 years. So, okay, let's say a year and a half. I'm kind of reaching by saying 2 years, trying to over-exaggerate this shit. But, yeah, he's been off for a year and a half. But that's probably not the best thing to do when you're 38 years old. Not only is he 38, but he's turning 39 3 or 4 days after. So the fight is on the 21st. Yep, the fight's on the 21st. He turns 39 on the 25th. So he's definitely getting up there in age. And something even John Anik says in that fight against Dwight Grant is, the clock is ticking. He's 37 years old at the time, and the clock is definitely ticking on him for actually to go out there and really put a stamp on his career and try to make one last run. And I think in the welterweight division, it's going to be very, very difficult for Alan Jouban to go out there and get a title, to beat a guy like Colby Covington or to beat a guy like Kamaru Usman. Anybody in those top 3, top 4, Hamza Chimaev, who's making a run now too, as well as Leon Edwards. I just don't see Alan Jouban going out there and beating guys like that. See, that's the difficult part. Now, Jordan Gooden, on the other end, 26 years old. He's a prospect on the up and up, but he's had a ton of experience. We're talking about a guy that has over 21 fights, and he's 26 years old. He made his pro MMA debut August of 2015, and in 5 years, just over 5 years, he's managed to accrue over 21 fights. That's a crazy amount of fights. During this COVID time, he fought a guy, this was right before COVID, maybe 2 or 3 weeks before COVID. He beat a guy that was 3-13, a guy named Jay Jackson. He rear naked choked him pretty much a minute and a half into the fight. And then he goes out there in Titan FC in July and finishes a guy named Trent McCowan. I'm slightly questioning the level of competition that he's been fighting of late. Even the fight before the Jay Jackson fight, he fought a guy named Marcel Stamps, who was 4-1, looked absolutely gassed after that first round, and it seemed he tapped more so to exhaustion than that actual guillotine choke. Yeah, the guillotine choke was tight for sure, but it was a standing guillotine choke. He didn't really even look for a way out, really, and he tapped to that choke. One thing that Gooden looks like he has... he looks like he has power. Looks like he has solid stand-up, but it does also look like that he does have some possible gas tank issues. And, Jouban has a solid gas tank on him. And if he's able to kind of pick apart Jared Gooden from the outside and use his movement, he could potentially, pull off a decision victory here. I tried getting into the Stephen Newell fight, wasn't able to access that. The Bruno Oliveira fight, that one was very quick for Jared Gooden. Gets absolutely starched by Bruno Oliveira, but then has come back 3 straight fights, and now he finds himself in the UFC. He was actually supposed to fight Dwight Grant back in August. Unfortunately, he had to pull out due to some sort of injury, and now here he is coming back in against Alan Jouban. So, personally, I think it's early Jared Gooden or late Alan Jouban. I wish I could see that Stephen Newell fight to really get a feel on Jared Gooden's cardio and how he was able to pull out a decision victory against a guy that was 9-0. Let's see what Stephen Newell is up to now and what his record has been like. 9-2, so he's only had one more fight since that Jared Gooden fight, and he got knocked out in a minute. That was just last week, actually, too. This is a tough one because, again, there's so many question marks regarding Alan Jouban and what he's going to look like after coming back from so long. And then Jared Gooden, he's, a UFC newcomer, skeptical competition, at least in his last 3 fights, but I don't want to shit on that too much because the guy has over 21 fights and he's fought, Bruno Oliveira, Mike Graves, Micah Miller, if you guys remember him. I believe he is Cole Miller's brother, if I'm not mistaken. The guy's been around. He has a ton of experience. So, if you have more than 15 fights, you should probably be in the UFC at this point in time, especially if you have a solid record behind that too. So, personally, I'm just going to pass on this fight in total. I don't even like the total either, the over-under. Again, if it's under, it's probably Jared Gooden winning. If it's over, it's probably Alan Jouban winning. I'm going to go the safe route. I'm going to go with the UFC vet. I'm going to go with Alan Jouban. But in terms of betting this fight, I'm staying the fuck away. I really want to see what Jared Gooden's made of. He could absolutely go in there and starch Alan Jouban in that first minute. But again, I'm buying into the possible, the lack of disrespect, the lack of respect people are giving Jouban's durability. I'm kind of dispelling that just as I did earlier in this breakdown. So once again, I'll go with Alan Jouban, kind of sticking and moving, possibly even taking this fight to the ground, just as he did late in that Dwight Grant fight. Maybe he tries to nullify the power of Jared Gooden by doing that, getting this fight to the ground or pushing him up against the cage, whatever it is, trying to suck those muscles dry, trying to reduce the amount of power coming back to him from the night train. But I'll go with Jouban. Kind of hurts to say that, especially if, with my guy Dan Levy over there at Best Fight Picks. He sponsored Jared Gooden for a long time. I believe they're boys. I believe he's trained with him a couple times too, if I'm not mistaken. I want to see a little bit more from the guy. It's tough for me to bet a guy that seems to have sketchy cardio. People can say what they want about me betting Al Hassan last time, but I was absolutely sure that he's going to get that first round knockout. Unfortunately, it went the other way. But I think Alan Jouban just has a little bit more ways to get this fight done with. But I'll be the first one to say I'm scared of the fact that he's 38, 39 years old and has been out of the cage for as long as he has, especially against an up-and-coming hungry guy like Jared Gooden. So my official pick is going to be Alan Jouban, but by no means am I confident in it. Daniel Rodriguez versus Nicolas Dalby. Currently no lines out for this fight. I'm expecting Daniel Rodriguez to drop as the favorite. I'm thinking maybe minus 150 all the way up to minus 175-ish range. Not 100% sure, but we'll see maybe even 200. I wouldn't be surprised to see that 200 line either on Daniel Rodriguez here. So let's start off with him, who's had a little bit of a tumultuous run recently in terms of being able to secure fights. So he's coming off a victory over Dwight Grant, which took place August 22nd. And if most people remember, that was the night he was supposed to fight Takashi Sato, and Dwight Grant was supposed to fight somebody else. Unfortunately, both of their opponents pull out, and they're just like, you know what? Let's get it going. Let's get it cracking. Let's get a fight going. And they ended up booking the fight pretty much on the fight day. Luckily, both of them had made weight, so they were both eligible to fight. And they came together and they had a very solid fight. I'm not 100% sure if it got fight of the night, but it should have, considering the amount of, it was only a 2.5 minute fight, but the amount of strikes that were thrown and the amount of damage that was dished out by both guys, absolutely phenomenal. We saw Dwight Grant first have success in terms of landing a big shot, rocking Daniel Rodriguez, and then we saw Rodriguez, recover from that and, a minute later get his own finish. So we saw the resiliency and durability of Daniel Rodriguez in that fight, and every fight this guy continues to impress me. Going into his short notice fight against Tim Means, I was expecting, a guy that was, a little bit one-dimensional, mainly just looking for the knockout shots. But as we've seen his UFC career kind of come together, he looks like a pretty polished striker. Like, his jab is beautiful. His hooks are beautiful. Some nice kicks too. Something that he likes to show off on his IG as well is that he works his wrestling and grappling a lot. And that's not something that we've seen too much from him in his UFC career thus far. I feel like we're actually going to get that tested a little bit here against Nicolas Dalby, who, in my opinion, needs to get this fight to the ground to have some success. We've seen him take a ton of damage, not to mention Jesse Ronson last time around rocking him, dropping him, and then finishing him with a rear naked choke. But you got to question the durability of Dalby here, especially against a very heavy puncher like Daniel Rodriguez, and especially a finisher like Daniel Rodriguez too. Dalby did have the advantage last time around, being the much bigger guy against Jesse Ronson. Ronson normally a lightweight, and Dalby, physically you could see he was much, much bigger than him, but he had a lot of trouble getting Jesse Ronson to the ground, and then he was doing decent on the feet, threw a lot of good leg kicks, had some solid combinations, but it was a little slip up in that instance where he got dropped, where he just exchanged in the fire a little bit too long, and if he does that against Daniel Rodriguez, it's going to be, a tough night for him. I don't expect him to trade there, but I do expect him to get caught at a certain point. I don't expect him to just put out a full, complete game plan for 15 minutes here against Daniel Rodriguez, who every single fight, this kid's confidence is growing, and I can't wait to see, how he fully evolves into the fighter that he's just set out to be. So, I got to give the striking advantage to Daniel Rodriguez. We don't know the extent of Rodriguez's ground game yet. So if Dalby does decide to take this to the ground, I'm interested to see how that plays out. But I like Rodriguez here. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to be betting him yet. I got to see what the line looks like when it comes out. But I do expect him to get the better of the feet. If Dalby, if he sticks on the outside and tries to implement his grappling and put together a complete MMA game, he could make an argument that he could pull away with this fight. But the Alex Cowboy Oliveira fight was rough too. Like, he was getting hurt a lot in there. It just turned out, that he was always able to get that extra gear, get that reversal, get that takedown at the end to kind of secure the fight for himself. But Rodriguez, I think it's going to be a little bit harder to pull off against him. Rodriguez, we've seen him just put together such beautiful performances with his hands that I feel like he'll be able to catch Dalby on the way in. And Dalby's going to, he's not going to be the bigger guy here. So he's 5'11", 74.5-inch reach, whereas Daniel Rodriguez, 6'1", with a 74-inch reach. So size slightly on Daniel Rodriguez's side. And I like Rodriguez here. I can't wait to see how he continues to evolve, like I said earlier. And I truly want to see his grappling game too. Let's see that tested here. Let's see Nicolas Dalby land a takedown, and let's see what Rodriguez looks like off of his back. Or let's see at least what Rodriguez's takedown defense looks like when it's tested against a guy like Nicolas Dalby. But then again, you got to kind of take some points away from Dalby's wrestling, since he was not able to get Jesse Ronson down last time. So that's something to keep in mind here. But I do like Daniel Rodriguez. Like I said, I feel like he's going to have the crisper hands. I feel like he's going to be doing the better damage. He'll be able to time the entries from Nicolas Dalby and maybe land some good shots and keep Dalby a little bit hesitant on the outside. Maybe throw in a couple leg kicks here and there as well to kind of slow down Dalby and his bouncing around style that he normally has. So I'll go with Daniel Rodriguez here. I feel like he'll get it done on the feet. I could see him getting the knockout too. So I'll go with Daniel Rodriguez to win this either by first or second knockout. I like Rodriguez here. I can't wait to see him face other guys, maybe a little bit more step up. And again, he's 33 years old. He'll be 34 in December. So he's really going to have to get it going, get this run going, and start stacking up the names. And Nicolas Dalby is a decent name and another step forward to securing himself in that welterweight division. So once again, I'll go with Daniel Rodriguez to win this fight via first or second round KO. Antonina Shevchenko versus Ariane Lipski. We got -155 on Antonina and +130 on the Queen of Violence. And this fight has really pretty much stayed where the opener had it at, roughly around -160 for Shevchenko. We did see a little bit of love for Ariane Lipski come in. However, it's all still Shevchenko, and a lot of people are in agreement in that. So let's start off with Ariane Lipski, who seemed to have reversed her unfortunate start to the UFC. She comes into the UFC, loses a decision to Joanne Calderwood, then she goes out there and gets out grappled by Molly McCann, and then everybody's just going out there and willing to write off Ariane Lipski now. Then she goes out there, gets a super short notice fight against Isabel de Padua, who stepped in for, I believe, it was Veronica Macedo on weigh-in day. We saw de Padua. I think she was there to corner somebody else, and luckily for her, she was able to come out with a fight, get a paycheck, even though it was a loss. But she still gets to walk home with a cool $8,000, $10,000, whatever it is. But we did see Lipski do a good job of, pretty much, going out there and get a solid decision victory over Padua. Then she comes back as, I believe it was a pick'em, if I'm not mistaken. She was actually the dog here, minus 130 favorite, but I was surprised at the amount of love that was coming in on Luana Carolina, and I had to take a shot on Lipski at that point, and luckily it came through, and maybe not the way that I expected it to come through, but that knee bar that she was able to secure on Carolina was just beautiful. Not much happened in that fight in terms of being able to take or extract something from that and say, okay, this is what's going to happen in the Shevchenko fight, but, it only lasted a minute and a half. She lands a beautiful body shot, which kind of like... Well, it was kind of a counter because Luana was throwing a kick. Lipski throws a punch to the body. It gets Carolina off balance, drops her to the ground, and we see Lipski follow her to the ground. It seemed like Carolina was almost reversing the position. Then we see Lipski grab the knee and just absolutely torque it, and get an immediate tap, and she gets a knee bar victory. Obviously, this is going to be much more, a much tougher out against Antonina Shevchenko, and this might be a fight that mainly stays on the feet. I wouldn't be too... I'd be actually surprised if we saw Shevchenko go out there and try to just implement a grapple-heavy game plan. That was her demise in her last fight against Katlyn Chookagian, where we saw a completely uncharacteristic Chookagian go out there and just absolutely just smother Shevchenko for 3 rounds. And she had a lot of close submission attempts, but we did see Shevchenko fight out of pretty much every single one of them, but still lose a decision victory where, Shevchenko just seemed lost almost. Like Chookagian, as much flack as she gets, she is a bit of a higher level jiu-jitsu player compared to the rest of that division. So that was a solid performance on Chookagian's part. Before that, we did see Shevchenko pull off a submission victory over Lucy Pudilova in a transition that was absolutely beautiful, where she just took the back of Pudilova. It looked like Pudilova was going to be able to the reverse the position herself, but we saw Antonina just sneak her arm under her neck and then slowly start to squeeze, and we saw Pudilova just face force just go out, and it was probably one of the more aesthetically pleasing submissions to see, just because of the veracity of it. It was a beautiful rear naked choke from Shevchenko, and then obviously before that we saw her go out there and get out grappled by Modafferi. Now, I don't think that Lipski will be capable of doing that type of game plan where she just goes out there, continuously takes Shevchenko down and just controlling her, because I do think Shevchenko's jiu-jitsu is decent. Like, it's good enough, and I think it's on par with Lipski's, actually. If this fight stays on the feet, though, that's where I'm really intrigued to see who gets the advantage. I do leave Shevchenko. I feel like she has the more polished striking. Lipski, she's the queen of violence for a reason. She likes using her elbows. She likes using her Muay Thai. But when she's pressured and opponents are having success against her, we might see her start to falter, and that's where I think that Shevchenko will start to take over a little bit. I was a fan of Lipski, but against competition like this, where I feel like she'll be outgunned on the feet and she won't be able to have much success on the ground, I do lean Shevchenko, and I do understand why she's at the minus 150-ish favorite that she's at. I don't feel the most, I don't feel so compelled to go out there and actually bet Shevchenko at minus 150. Now, if this line started to get closer, that might be a little bit more sexy and more appealing to me. But I do think Shevchenko wins this fight. But this fight should tell us a lot about Lipski for sure. Like, this is a legitimate test. Luana Carolina was not a test. Like, that was, I remember, I forgot who it was, but one of my Twitter friends goes out there and during fight week puts out a video of Luana Carolina doing like the worst types of push-ups that you could ever see. Like, her stick arms just barely getting her up. And, I'm not saying, if you do push-ups to completion and that you're able to actually, complete a legitimate push-up, that you should go out there and win your fights, or if you're not able to do a push-up that you're going to lose your fights. But like, small things like that does kind of sway me a little bit in terms of just saying, okay, Lipski should be able to beat a girl like this. And even on tape, I wasn't fully impressed with what I saw from Luana Carolina. So it played right into Lipski's game. Not a lot of people thought that she'd pull off a knee bar in that, but it is what it is. She gets the victory a minute and a half into that fight. But I still like Shevchenko in this fight. I feel like she'll be cleaner on the feet. I feel like she will have a size advantage as well. So we got 5'8", 68-inch reach for Shevchenko and 5'6", 67-inch reach for Lipski. So slightly taller for Shevchenko. But I think, this is a solid spot for Shevchenko to get a victory, especially on the same night as her sister defending her title, and who should win that fight pretty decisively as well. So I do like Shevchenko. Kind of lucky that we probably won't be hearing Valentina's just annoying, cheering every time that Shevchenko or every time that Antonina lands a fucking shot. So that'll be nice to not have to hear, especially in an empty, arena or the Apex, I believe it's going to be at. So, I do like Shevchenko. I think she's cleaner on the feet. She might have the jiu-jitsu advantage as well, if I'm not mistaken. But I truly see this fight mainly playing out on the feet. And I think from distance, we'll see Shevchenko really start to pick apart Lipski. But it could be a closer fight than the odds indicate. But I do think I know that I'm still edging Shevchenko here. So I'm taking Antonina to win this fight by decision. But it could be some shit. It could be some fireworks too that could potentially get this fight to go under. But I'll go the safer side. I'll say Shevchenko via outpointing for 15 minutes and just winning a good fight. And she could, again, I do think that we could see Shevchenko start to initiate the grappling here. If the fight is kind of close, she could kind of close the distance. I think she'll be the stronger one too, so she might be able to get the better positions in the clinch and then potentially get this fight to the ground and see what she can do from there. But I think overall Antonina is the better fighter, and she is the one I'm going to be taking to win this fight via decision. Joaquin Buckley versus Jordan Wright. We got minus 265 on the highlight sensation Joaquin Buckley and plus 225 on the Beverly Hills Ninja Jordan Wright. And the over-under 1.5, obviously minus 150. The world is expecting both these guys to kind of go to war here. Fight doesn't go to decision is minus 505. Let's start off with the Beverly Hills Ninja, who used to be the butt of the joke going into the Contender Series when he lost 40 seconds into that fight against Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Going into that fight, though, he was 9-0, going out there and completely starching everybody that was in his way. But once you really look into the guys that were in his way, you start to see why people were calling him King Can Crusher. So in 9 of those fights, all 9 of his opponents combined for 8 wins. 8 wins, 9 opponents. How many losses? 5, 15, 36... 41, 9, 8, and 41. There's a reason everybody called him King Can Crusher. Let's try to say that quick 5 times. King Can Crusher, King Can Crusher, King Can Crusher. Anyway, there's a reason everybody called him King Can Crusher going into that Anthony Fluffy Hernandez fight. So obviously he goes out there, loses that fight. Then he comes back. He takes a year and a half off, changes his training camp. He was initially at Jackson Wink, moves over to a gym called Dynamics MMA. I believe they are located in California. Let me just confirm that real quick. Yeah, they're in Los Angeles, California. Well, you would hope somebody nicknamed the Beverly Hills Ninja to be, in California. So he changes gyms, goes out there and finishes Gabriel Checo, who's a very legitimate opponent. So that one was very, very respectable. And then we saw him go out there and absolutely decimate Ike Villanueva in his UFC debut back in August. And now here he is against Joaquin Buckley. And I'm a little bit concerned for my own well-being because I'm actually warming up to the kid now. You know what I mean? He used to be, like I said, he used to be the butt of the joke, but now he's somebody that seems like they have a little bit of talent. You know, he moves well. He's strong. He's big. He's fast. He has decent technique. The thing before always used to be, okay, he doesn't really have the greatest competition. And it seemed like once there was finally somebody that could go out there and challenge him, kind of like Anthony Hernandez, he would kind of wilt. So he loses to Anthony Hernandez, but then he goes out there and beats 2 game opponents in Gabriel Checo and Ike Villanueva. And that kind of like, okay, that's making me reconsider what kind of fighter this guy is in my mind. He's a huge dude. It really blew me away to realize how big this guy actually is. In terms of metrics, he's 6'2" with the 77-inch reach. And with Joaquin Buckley, we're talking about a guy that's 5'10" with the 73-inch reach. So Jordan Wright is definitely going to have an evident size advantage here. And it absolutely makes sense. This fight is going to be contested at middleweight. He used to fight at 205. Well, not used to, but his last fight against Ike Villanueva was at 205. The kid could potentially be a problem now that it seems like he got his mind right. You know, he looks like he's super confident in there. It looks like he He knows that he belongs there, which I believe is a huge part, especially in MMA. Like a lot of people don't talk about it as much, but the mental game is huge. Like if you don't believe that you belong there, then you're not going to really perform to the best of your abilities, and you're just going to be like, okay, I didn't really end up belonging here after all. But this fight against Joaquin Buckley is going to show us a lot about Jordan Wright and if he's actually there, because I believe this will be one of the first opponents that can match kind of his athleticism, his speed. And is not scared of him. That's one big thing that I believe he had an advantage of over most of his opponents earlier in his career. Joaquin Buckley, on the other hand, let's just finish up with Jordan though. He, like I said, explosive, good footwork, taekwondo background. I believe he has moves in and out very well. Solid kickboxing. Still want to see more of his jiu-jitsu, but he does have a couple of chokes on his record, but again, against questionable competition. So that's something I'd like to know more about. I'm not sure how much we'll find out about that here against Joaquin Buckley, who's probably going to want to keep this fight on the feet, just as Jordan Wright probably will want to. I'm not counting out the fact that we might see Jordan Wright take this to the ground to potentially have a bigger advantage there. But Joaquin Buckley has shown decent get-ups in his past. This one's tough. I think, first of all, the line is a little bit too wide. And I think it's a little bit skewed due to the impact that his last knockout has. He instantly became a viral sensation. Let's not forget, going into the Impa Kasanganay fight, he was the one that was the plus 210 underdog going into the fight, right? Now it's Jordan Wright. Jordan Wright. Why do I always want to say Griffin? Anyway, it's Jordan Wright now going in there as the massive underdog. And it makes no sense. Like, Joaquin Buckley, yeah, he has some knockout power, but he seems sometimes when he's dealing with guys that give a little bit more of or are bigger than him, he kind of falters in trying to close the gap and land those big shots. He had that issue with Kevin Holland. He obviously took that fight on super short notice, but we could see in that fight that when Kevin Holland was fighting at distance and moving a lot, it was a lot harder for Joaquin Buckley to really land those big bombs. Obviously, the Kasanganay fight, from right off the bat, we could tell, okay, this fight was widely incorrect in terms of the odds, as Joaquin Buckley definitely went out there and took the first round. And then in the second round, he goes out there and throws that jumping, spinning back kick, which, again, makes him a complete viral sensation. Now, I think just like another fight later on in this card, the odds are just heavily skewed due to the last performance of this of a fighter. Now here with Joaquin Buckley, obviously that kick makes him so famous now that everybody wants to go out there and bet him and think he is a knockout sensation, that everything that he touches is just going to fall asleep now. And there are questions about Jordan Wright's durability. Obviously, Fluffy Hernandez was able to put him out with relative ease in 40 seconds, but has he made any improvements in that? We're not sure. The play that I'm looking at here is actually the under 1.5, as I do believe this new style of Jordan Wright that we're seeing is he kind of really initiates the strikes and really wants to make his opponent work and kind of intimidate them with the power that's coming his way. And man, I think that we might see Wright kind of successful in keeping away from the power of Joaquin Buckley. Like, I think we'll see him use more kicks. I think we'll see him kind of teep Joaquin Buckley a little bit more. I think we'll see him, land at range and then, get out of the way, pivot out of the way of the big shots coming his way from Buckley. But Buckley is just one of those guys that, like, he loads up on a lot of his shots. Sometimes he'll blitz and try to move forward with his shots, but he needs to really close the distance consistently to be able to land his big shots. And Jordan Wright, in my opinion, does a decent job of getting out of the way of big strikes and moves quite well. So I think this fight should be lined much, much closer. Now, do I have the balls to go out there and bet Jordan Wright? I'm not 100% sure about that. What I would probably bet, though, is the under 1.5, as I do believe Jordan Wright has a ton of power that he could absolutely land on Buckley and put him out. Kevin Holland, not really known for the greatest amount of power, but he was able to do it. Obviously, that was more of an accumulative amount of damage that he had to endure to finally get knocked out in that third round. And then Jackie Gosch was one that put him out. That was over 4 years ago, though. So, both guys have been put out. Both guys have immense power, but I do think that Jordan Wright could come with a better game plan to lend his power shots to greater effect without taking as much damage in return. So, this is one where I would refrain from parlaying Joaquin Buckley, as I feel like there's still There's still question marks around him. But this is a fight where we'll truly see, where Jordan Wright is, because Ike Villanueva, decent opponent, but he doesn't have the type of he didn't have the type of bravado or intimidation factor that was really needed to see if it would shake Jordan Wright. Like, Jordan Wright knew he had him mentally, physically, athletically, and every facet of the game. Jordan Wright had Ike Villanueva beat, and he did exactly that once he stepped into cage. Now with Joaquin Buckley, he can match Jordan Wright in some of those spots. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But once again, I'm gonna go with Jordan Wright. I think Jordan Wright gets it done, probably first or second round KO. I can't believe those words are actually coming out of my mouth, but that's what I truly believe after running the tape here. Again, a lot of recency bias here on Joaquin Buckley and him being a viral sensation. But Jordan Wright might be able to get a viral sensation of his own going here against Joaquin Buckley. So once again, I'll go with Jordan Wright to win this fight, probably in the first or early second round. But yeah, please do not parlay Joaquin Buckley in the spot, because I believe that line is just far too skewed due to that crazy finish that he had of Impa Kasanganai. And everybody say it with me. It's Impa Kasanganai. All right. Once again, let me finish off this prediction for you guys. Jordan Wright via first or second round KO. Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval. We got minus 185 for Moreno and plus 160 for Raw Dog Royval. And the fight doesn't go to decision. Props just recently dropped, and we got plus 115 on the fight to not go to decision. So let's actually start off with the newer UFC fighter, Brandon Royval, who's had 2 UFC fights now, and he's gone 2-0. Both fights super entertaining. The Tim Elliott fight, a back and forth scrambling, grappling exchange, pretty much all 8 minutes of that fight, 8 minutes and 18 seconds specifically. And we see, Tim Elliott kind of gas himself out almost. Not even gas himself out, but like Royval pushes such a chaotic pace that it almost forces opponents to gas out. So Tim Elliott succumbed to that, was going for a bunch of submissions, wasn't able to pull them off against Royval, and then Royval eventually gets that arm triangle choke midway through the second round. Then the Kai Kara-France fight, absolute bonkers fight where, that first exchange, one of those first exchanges where Kai Kara-France lands a beautiful shot on Brandon Royval. Royval looks okay, but then he takes a step forward, kind of stumbles. We see Kai Kara-France kind of lunge forward and try to take advantage, and we see fucking Royval throw a beautiful spinning back elbow, lands perfectly on Kai Kara-France and drops him too. One of the crazier exchanges that we're going to see all year. But Royval is just all action all the time. The guy just does not stop moving forward. His cardio is off the chain. His jiu-jitsu is off the chain too. And he may not be as credentialed as much as a guy like Jussier Formiga, that's Moreno's last opponent. But I still think he could possess some threats here to Moreno in that jiu-jitsu realm. I love Raw Dog. I love his style. I like to call him Mini Ferguson because a lot of people are kind of comparing him to Nate Diaz, and I don't really understand that. Like, it's clear that he's more like Tony Ferguson in terms of just being so chaotic, not really having the greatest striking techniques or striking mechanics, but still going out there and throwing like solid shots down the middle, solid kicks, spinning shit, and then his jiu-jitsu is just pretty offensive at all times. So it's super fun to watch the kid fight. This is a super tough fight for his third fight in the UFC. Even the Kai Kara-France fight, that was the second fight in the UFC for him, and he came in as a plus 170 dog. I remember cashing on that too. That was one of my prouder moments this year as well, because everybody's like, Kai Kara-France is going to go out there and just starch this kid. He has nothing on the feet. But the issue with Kai Kara-France is, just as we saw in the Brandon Moreno fight, is when somebody brings the fight to him and isn't just accepting of the fact that Kai Kara-France is just going to lunge in every now and then and land a couple shots and get out of the way, guys that can push the pace against them kind of can create chaos, are way more successful against Kai Kara-France, which is why I think that Royval was, I think he's a little bit more chaotic than Brandon Moreno, which is why Royval was able to get the finish there. Beautiful jumping guillotine that he was able to secure on Kai Kara-France. It was hilarious because Kai, clearly going for the takedown, and it, technically as a wrestler, he did the right thing in terms of trying to pick up Royval and they usually, it's weird that the wrestlers do this, but they usually expose their neck to allow to create more force and generate more power when you take an opponent down. But that was the exact time that Brandon Royval was like, "Oh, you're gonna give me your neck?" He's gonna snatch it up, get kind of drag Kai Car-France to the ground with that choke, and then just readjust his footing to get a little bit more pressure on that choke, a little bit more torque, and he was able to get the submission there. So that was a beautiful choke and shows that he is pretty much ever dangerous. Now in this fight against Brandon Moreno, somebody actually pointed it out on my Twitter when I was talking about I'm super excited for this fight. They said that Brandon Moreno is kind of a slightly better version of Brandon Royval, and I kind of agree. My issue here, though, is what happens when Moreno deals with chaos just as he creates chaos, right? If not more. Like I said, Royval is just so good at just pushing fighters and getting them to make mistakes. Moreno is kind of the same way too, but I think just slightly more controlled chaos than what Brandon Royval brings to the table. Like we've seen a true resurgence from Brandon Moreno compared to when he originally came into the UFC after the Ultimate Fighter. If I'm not mistaken, he only had 1 or 2 fights outside of the UFC before he came back. So his last fight in the UFC was a loss to Alexandre Pantoja. Goes out there and beats Michael Perez in round 4 at LFA 69. I believe that was for a title, hence the 4 rounds there. And then he comes right back to the UFC and draws against Askar Askarov in a fight where a lot of people thought that Askarov would go out and win. Arguably, you could say that Brandon Moreno won that fight too. And I had money on Askar Askarov. I thought he was going to go out there and dummy Moreno, but we did see a lot of improvements from him. And then in the Kai Car-France fight, that even more cemented that, okay, this is a new version of Moreno. He goes out there, throws wacky strikes, throws this unorthodox striking style that he has, but he still has the jiu-jitsu to go out there and back that up too. The commentators were kind of mystified that he wasn't taking Kai down, and as the fight started to play out, you kind of understand why. He has this weird style of, it's kind of unorthodox, but he has this stinging jab, beautiful jab right down the middle, but his movement is very unorthodox. Likes to throw a lot of weird shit, has some good kicks as well too, and I love this evolution that we've seen from Moreno. In the Juicy Formiga fight, another fight that kind of cemented the progress and the improvements that Moreno is making. To go out there and outstrike Formiga the way he did, to go out there and get the better of some of the scrambles against a super high level jiu-jitsu guy like Formiga, spinning out of the back. He had Formiga had his back a couple times there, and he did a really good job of scrambling out of those positions and then getting on top. Yeah, there were some hairy situations, kind of even like the last minute of the third round, where Formiga pretty much had the full mount but was not able to really land enough. And I think he was just too scared to kind of peel himself off of Moreno to land some damage or look for a submission, because he was scared that Moreno would go out there and just scramble and create chaos like I'm talking about. That's a theme of this breakdown, because both guys, Moreno and Royval, are masters of creating chaos and kind of capitalizing on that. So I think Formiga was a little bit too scared to really let go in that last minute. He wanted to secure the position and thought that would have been enough to actually get the judge's decision. Turns out unanimous for Moreno. But if you look at MMA decisions, there's a lot of fans and even media that were very split on this fight. Personally, I thought Moreno did enough to win that fight. The Kai Car-France fight was probably his best work to date. But to get a victory over Formiga the way that he did was very, very impressive. Now, I'm staying away from this fight in terms of picking a side here, but I wouldn't be mad at picking the under 2.5 if that's actually what it drops at. I'm pretty certain that's what it will drop at. The fight doesn't go to decision is currently plus 115, which makes me believe that the under 2.5 will probably be around plus 125, plus 130, and I wouldn't mind that spot here given the style of both of these guys. My read is the fact that Moreno will probably be crisper on the feet, landing the better shots on the feet, but when it does get to the chaotic parts, I don't know. I feel like I lean Royval in that situation a little bit more. Moreno is a brown belt, though. And even Juicy Formiga, the way that Moreno dealt with Formiga and got out of those situations, I feel as though that Royval puts himself into more danger when we're talking about the jiu-jitsu aspect, and doesn't mind, doing a couple things that maybe aren't technically the correct things to do, but still the things that will allow him to to create winning opportunities for himself. So the pick is going to be Moreno, because I do agree with what that person on Twitter said, that Moreno is probably the slightly better version here, especially on the feet. But yeah, I'm not willing to pay minus 185 on Moreno, especially against a guy like Royval, who in my opinion is ever improving, and is just such a wild card. Like, you really don't know what you're truly going to get with this guy. But I love, well, you do know what you're going to get with him, and that's chaos. But yeah, I love Moreno in this spot. I'm a huge Raw Dog fan. I'm gonna be cheering for him here. But in terms of a bet, you gotta set aside the biases. I don't think that there's enough. There's just not enough confidence on my side that Moreno is that much better than Royval. Like, if this fight was closer to maybe a minus 120, minus 130 for Moreno, I'd be a little bit more, inclined to make that Moreno bet. But I think the bet here could potentially be the under 2.5. So that's what I'll be keeping my eye out for once those lines start to drop. So I do like Moreno to win this fight. I'll say maybe second round sub or second round TKO. But this is a close fucking fight. It would not surprise me in the least bit if Royval pulled off the victory here. So in terms of picking a side, like I said, once again, I'm not picking a side, at least betting wise. But for predictions, that's what you guys are here for. I will go with Moreno. But in terms of a bet, I think the side that is best would probably be the under 2.5, as I believe Royval is just crazy. Even Moreno too. Like, this fight could have the potential to be fight of the year, and I can't wait for that. In terms of like finishes and getting finished, like how many fight doesn't go to decisions have cash for Royval? Let's go over that real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 out of 16 fights for him. And then for Brandon Moreno, let's get that real quick. I'm not sure why Tapology doesn't really have the complete method of victories in their earlier careers. But even for Moreno, never been finished, so that's something to keep in mind here. So Royval is going to have a tough time to finish this guy. But I think if there is anybody that could finish Moreno, it's probably Royval with his chaotic style. But Moreno has won via finish 12 out of 17 victories. So again, I do like the under 2.5, given both their styles and the way that Royval just continuously brings the fight against his opponents, and Moreno's ability or ever improving abilities as well in Moreno. But yeah, this fight is crazy. I can't stop talking about it. It's probably going to be one of my longer breakdowns for this card because I'm so psyched for it. I think it's a very high level fight, and essentially, it's actually the number one contender fight for the main event here. Easily, you could throw in Moreno or Royval, given whoever wins the main event here. So, yeah, very, very high stakes fight, high level fight, and high probability that it could produce us the fight of the year contender here. So, once and for all, we'll go with Moreno to win this fight, be a second round TKO or sub. But the under 2.5 is probably the side that I'm leaning the most in terms of a bet. Shogun Hua versus Paul Craig. And this is a rematch of a fight that happened, I believe it was last year. Yeah, last year in November. So pretty much a full year later, we get a rematch of this matchup that went to a draw the first time. A split draw at that. So one judge had it for Craig, one judge had it for Shogun, and one judge had it as a draw. And now here we are, pretty much one fight removed from both guys, and we get the rematch. So Shogun in that amount of time has gotten a split decision victory over Hajiro Nogueira, and then on the other side, Paul Craig got a triangle choke victory over Gadzimurad and Tagulov. And if I'm not mistaken, yep, that was the same night. So both these guys, their last three fights are all going to have happened on the same night. Obviously, two of them being against each other. And before I hit record on this episode, I actually tweeted out a little bit of a, kind of sarcastic, kind of real joke of, in 2021, we could potentially be getting a fight between Glover Teixeira and Shogun Rua for the belt. And, a part of me is semi-joking, you know what I mean? Like, if a couple things just work out in certain ways, like if Glover Teixeira goes out there, actually gets the title fight against Jan Blachowicz and he gets the strap, Shogun goes out there, beats Paul Craig, he's 6-1-1, maybe throw him another fighter, and what if he gets past that guy too? We could be seeing Glover Teixeira, 42-year-old or 41-year-old Glover Teixeira fighting 38-year-old, or sorry, he's going to be 39 by then. Shogun's birthday is November 25th, but 39-year-old Shogun Rua and 41-year-old Glover Teixeira, possibly 42 by the time they fight, fighting for a strap. Ridiculous, crazy. But let's talk about this fight because I'm actually going to be going the other way. As much as I love Shogun, Shogun is easily my favorite fighter of all time. Him and Vanderlei Silva easily tied for 1 and 2. But this is a tough fight for him, just as it was the first time around. And luckily for him, in my opinion, I thought Paul Craig went out there and actually blew his gas tank in that first round. That first round, he had Shogun hurt. He had him rocked up against the cage, and he just unloaded everything, and he just could not put Shogun away. Like, everything that he was throwing was pretty much landing on the guard of Shogun. Shogun just had that high guard like this, and everything was pretty much just landing on his forearms. If he had maybe gone for an uppercut or tried to split down the middle with the straight, he probably would have, done enough damage on Shogun to actually drop him. But Shogun was just waiting and biding his time, and then every now and then he would go out there and throw a hook himself too. But yeah, I think that exchange really took it out of Paul Craig, and we saw it kind of hinder him for the remainder of the fight. Shogun did a really good job of, whenever he got the fight to the ground, to just stay on top, do enough damage from on top. It was minimal damage, but it was damage nonetheless, to actually nullify the jiu-jitsu of Paul Craig. Like, we've seen Paul Craig go out there and submit Magomed Ankalaev late in the fight, go out there and submit Kennedy and Nzechukwu late in the fight. So he's capable of doing those things, but he was not capable of doing that against Shogun Rua that first time around. Now, I'm not the highest on Paul Craig either. So you're not going to find me going out there and playing Paul Craig at minus 175. If you give me minus 120, minus 130 for Paul Craig, I'd be a little bit more interested, but I don't think we're going to see that number. I do think that we're going to continue to see money come in on Craig and make this line even more unbettable. Just for reference, Paul Craig opened at minus 195, got up to minus 200, and now he's at that minus 175 range, which is where I think he'll roughly stay leading up to this fight. So we know Paul Craig's game. He wants to get you to the ground, whether it's him on his back or him on top, preferably him on top, and start to implement his jiu-jitsu. That's where he's made most of his money. That's where he, where the butter hits the bread. That's where he gets it done, is with his jiu-jitsu. And Shogun, black belt, but he's mainly known for his striking. So it's safe to say we know where both of these guys want to keep these fights. But then again, we have seen Shogun in his past couple fights, even in the Nogueira fight, kind of accrue top position time against some of his opponents and not really have much respect for the jiu-jitsu or potential jiu-jitsu coming back his way. I think he's going to have to be careful in this fight against Craig if he doesn't want to go that way about it. And even though he survived the first fight, with spending time on top, I think Paul Craig might have a little bit better of an idea of how to adjust and use his gas tank rather than just going out there and blowing his wad in the first round, just as he did in that first fight. This is a tough one. Like, I'm gonna have to go with the youth in Paul Craig here, but he's just not a fighter that I'm willing to trust. And I think that this fight is potentially going to be a pass. I could see them setting the over/under at 2.5. If that's the case, I wouldn't mind taking a flyer on the under, depending on what it is. Like, if it's like plus 150, plus 160 for the under 2.5, that's something that I'd probably have to hit. Like, at a certain point, Shogun's durability or his durability issues are going to start to show their faces again. I mean, he the last time he got knocked out was to Anthony Smith in July of 2018, but before that, the last time he got put out was in November of 2014. I can't believe it's been that long since he fought OSP, but now he is 5-1-1, in his last 7 fights, and that's all the way dating back to his fight with Nogueira the first time around at UFC 190 in 2015. But I think it's just a matter of time before his chin cracks again. And I'm not saying that Paul Craig is the guy that could potentially crack it, but there is a chance that he could. Like, he doesn't have crazy power in his hands or anything. He's mainly a jiu-jitsu guy, so maybe a club and sub is probably what he's going to be looking for. But I'm not confident in either guy here. Like, Shogun's a little bit too slow for my liking. His durability has held up, but I think it's just a matter of time before that cracks. Yeah, I don't know why he continues to do it, but how can you blame the guy for wanting to continuously go out there and fight and potentially win? You know what I mean? He's 5-1-1 in his last 7. What can you tell him? He's not going out there and continuously getting starched. He's going out there and winning. Given his, the competition has been a little bit sketchy, and those wins are, Corey Anderson, who's not in the UFC anymore, Nogueira twice, Gian Vellante, we know where his career's at. His loss was obviously to Anthony Smith. Beats Tyson Pedro, which is probably his only, legitimate win that you could say that he has. But even Tyson Pedro may be a bit of a flop in the light heavyweight division. And then he went to that draw with Paul Craig, and then once again, just as he started his winning streak, he goes out there and beats Nogueira as well too, via split decision. Just as he did. Actually, the second one was a unanimous. So this third one was a split. But yeah, I like Paul Craig here, but not by a lot. If anything, you gotta say that the value's on Shogun here, because this is more of a -120-ish type of fight for Paul Craig. Like, I'd say 55-44 Paul Craig. But yeah, just not enough confidence on him to pay that type of juice on a guy that I just can't trust. So I'd consider what the over-under is at, but that's about it. Like, I'd probably pass on this fight in total. But you guys want an official prediction from me? I'm gonna go with Paul Craig. I'm gonna go with the youth. I'm gonna go with the potential of that jiu-jitsu. Yeah, I mean, with Paul Craig potentially landing something there, but yeah, the confidence in Shogun is ever dwindling, and it's just a matter of time before his chin eventually cracks again, and we say sayonara. I think the next loss for Shogun is going to be his last, because he's going to want to hang it up after that. So I know he's had a bunch of conversations with his family and his wife, and they want him to stop, but he keeps going out there winning and collecting paychecks. So I'm sure he's just going to keep doing it until he finally takes another brutal loss, just as he did in the Anthony Smith fight, just as he did in the OSP fight 6 years ago. That's when people were banging on the drum to finally get him to retire. But since that amount of time, he's put together a solid streak. But yeah, this could be the end of the line for him, especially if it's a devastating knockout, which I don't really see. I could see Paul Craig just submitting him. That's probably the way that I'm going to go. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Paul Craig to win this fight via decision, but via submission, but just not the most confident in this spot. My heart's praying for Shogun. Shogun's one of my favorite fighters, like I said at the top of this breakdown. I hope he goes out and gets another dub somehow. But the brain and the logic here has got to be Paul Craig. But the logical side of me is also saying -175 is not worth it for a guy of Paul Craig's caliber. So once again, Paul Craig via submission. Katlyn Chookagian versus Cynthia Calvillo. We got -255 on Cynthia Calvillo and +215 on the blonde fighter. And the line actually opened up at -160, and we've seen steady movement and heavy movement, I should say, towards Cynthia Calvillo as this fight week has gone on. And I got to say, I can't really understand it. So let's start off with Cynthia Calvillo first and foremost. She is coming off a main event victory over Jessica Eye back in June. She was scheduled to fight Lauren Murphy back in October, I believe, at UFC 254. Unfortunately, Calvillo tested positive for COVID-19, so she got pulled out. Lauren Murphy gets a new opponent, and now she gets rescheduled just over a month, or just under a month later now, against Katlyn Chookagian. And I'm a Calvillo believer. I think she has some talent. I think she's good for the division. Great wrestling, good jiu-jitsu, improving striking. Obviously, again, working over there at Team Alpha Male and Justin Buckles and those guys. I'm not entirely sure what that relationship looks like now, just due to, I believe, Buckles having to leave Team Alpha Male. But, she's had a decent career. Her only loss coming to Carla Esparza back in 2017. And now she's on a 4-fight unbeaten streak, which includes a draw to Marina Rodriguez back in December at UFC DC, I believe it was. Now, the reason I'm a little bit skeptical about this fight is due to the massive size disadvantage that she's going to be at with Katlyn Chookagian, who has a 5-inch height advantage, 2-inch reach advantage, but obviously it's going to be much more pronounced once we see them side to side and facing off against each other. And Calvillo, sometimes she gets a little bit too carried away with being too confident in her hands, and obviously that's not really a bad thing at sometimes, but sometimes it is. And I think it would be bad against a girl like Katlyn Chookagian, who can make fights much closer just due to her movement, her pitter patter shots, her nice 1-2s down the middle, extending far on them as well too, to really punctuate the height advantage that she has over most of her opponents. And I think that might cause Calvillo some trouble here. Now, Chookagian is a high-level jiu-jitsu player herself as well. I think most notably she's a brown belt under Renzo Gracie. So I don't think that she'll have a significant amount of trouble on the ground if it gets there. If Calvillo is really able to close the distance, get in on the legs, and take this fight to the ground. But I think a lot of people are just going to point to Chookagian's fight against Valentina Shevchenko, where Shevchenko was absolutely having her way on the ground with her. Now, Calvillo and Shevchenko are two completely different fighters, so people need to recognize that first and foremost. And then obviously both fighters are coming, Calvillo and Chookagian are both coming off of completely different types of fights their last time around. You know what I mean? Cynthia Calvillo goes out there and has a dominant 5-round performance over Jessica Ai, where she did have some parts where or some portions of the fight where she was stumbling on the feet, and this guy did land some good shots. But once Calvillo was able to get the fight to the ground, she did a really good job of controlling, going for submission attempts, and then just landing damage of her own on the ground. Whereas Chookagian, on the other hand, is coming off a loss to Jessica Andrade just under a month ago. I believe that was the week before UFC 254. So October 17th, she lost to Jessica Andrade via a hook to the body, one of the worst body shot finishes that we've ever seen. And you got to credit Katlyn Chookagian, because just as the referee was stopping it, you saw her kind of like bounce back to her feet. And, if the referee had given her maybe a second or 2 seconds more, that fight probably would not have been stopped, given, there's only 5 seconds going into that second round, or 5 seconds left in that first round. Now, Chookagian is 1-2 in her last 3 fights. Obviously, those two is one of them coming to Valentina Shevchenko, and then obviously most recently Jessica Andrade. But the fight in between that was she has a win sandwiched in there over Antonina Shevchenko, where we saw her absolute domination on the floor, where she was able to just go out there and repeatedly take Shevchenko down and just absolutely control her. No real fight put up from Shevchenko on the ground there. And it's got to be a good victory to have, especially coming off a loss to her sister. That must have done a lot for her confidence, but then obviously going in there against a very tough woman, and Jessica Andrade was a lot tougher for her. But the Cynthia Calvillo fight is a little bit more backed out to her range now. And for this fight to be, as wide as it is with the odds is a little bit ridiculous to me. I'm surprised it's crazy like this. Like, we've seen Chookagian go out there and have solid performances against girls like Joanne Calderwood and Jennifer Maia, pretty much boxing them up from distance. And I think she could be successful in doing that against Calvillo here. If she keeps her shots straight down the middle, she will have a lot of success in keeping, Calvillo on the outside and kind of just whiffing on most of the shots that Calvillo is going to be throwing. Now, the difference between Jessica Ai and Katlyn Chookagian is that Chookagian moves a lot more than Ai. It's going to be a lot more difficult for Cynthia to land on Chookagian, the way that she has with some of her past opponents. Even the Courtney Casey fight, that was a fight that I looked at just to see what Calvillo does dealing with women that are, taller than her. Courtney Casey had a 3-inch height advantage in that fight. Katlyn Chookagian is going to have an extra 2 inches bigger than Courtney Casey. So we saw a little bit of that. And, Courtney Casey is not the type of striker that Chookagian is. She doesn't move as much. She's not as mobile. She doesn't have as stinging as a 1-2 that Chookagian does in my mind. And Chookagian is just a much better all-around fighter, in my opinion, compared to Courtney Casey. So, I think these odds must be a lot closer. I think the opener was a little bit more on the nose here, but the public has absolutely steamed Calvillo here, and I don't think it's justified. I think this fight's going to play out much closer, and I would rather have my money on the plus 205, plus 210 dog in Chookagian than I would on Cynthia Calvillo here. we saw just this past weekend, Kay Hansen and Corey McKenna had a really, close fight in a fight where a lot of people thought Kay Hansen would just run away with it. And now in that fight, I did admit that the odds were a little bit too wide, but I still did pick Hansen to win the fight. But in this fight, I do agree that the odds are too wide, but I still am siding with the dog, as I do believe that Chookagian can make this fight a lot closer than it should be. So I'm going to go with Chookagian to win this fight via decision, as, if this fight does primarily play out on the feet, she could absolutely steal it with her, patented tennis sounds and just kind of picking apart Calvillo from distance. And if this fight does hit the ground, I don't think it'll be completely one-way traffic for Calvillo. I think Chookagian will have some success on the ground too, even if she's on her back. So not saying that she's going to go out there and submit Calvillo, but she'll make it a lot tougher for Calvillo to really get her game going than some of the past opponents that Calvillo has taken to the ground. So once again, I'm going to go with Chookagian to win this fight via decision. I think there's massive value here on her at plus money, especially at plus 215. And last thing I'll say about this, I know a lot of people want to write fighters off once they talk about retirement, and even if it's the word that they use in a fight prior to before, but the fact that she's getting right back in there just kind of makes you believe that, okay, she wants to get that L back off of her record. And I'm not completely sold on the fact that, just because she says the word retirement, that, it automatically creates red flags and makes you want to bet against this fighter. I think you'd be a little bit too crazy to think that the line is accurate here. But yeah, once again, I'll go with Katlyn Chookagian to win this fight via decision. I think she has the chops to do it. And massive, massive value, in my opinion. Tim Means versus Mike Perry. We got minus 135 on Mike Perry and plus 115 on the Dirty Bird. Mike Perry actually opened up around the minus 185 range and has slowly gotten bet, or we've seen money come in on Means now, and he's gotten bet all the way down to minus 135 now. And it makes sense once you start running the tape. We have no props on this. Obviously, the fight doesn't go to decision is always a sexy prop when you're talking about two, seemingly finishers in fights. But let's talk about Tim Means first and foremost. So he's 30-12-1 coming off a victory over Laureano Staropoli in a great fight where he showed resiliency. He showed that his chin is, you can somewhat trust it still. Like there are against heavier punches, it's obviously going to be a little bit questionable, but you see the technique, you see his ability to use his leg kicks to keep the range, to keep the knees going, and he's starting to go out there and start wrestling dudes now too, which should allow him to really, start to implement his jiu-jitsu game, which is heavily underrated, I should say. He's been around the UFC for a while now, and the one thing that has been questionable of his in recent times, and a lot of people are, kind of hesitant to put money on Dirty Bird nowadays, just due to his durability. So he's gotten finished 1, 2. Out of his last 4 losses, he's gotten finished twice. In that Daniel Rodriguez fight, he got hurt a couple times, pretty bad on the feet, and then tapped to a guillotine choke. And then the Nico Price fight, we know how badass Nico Price is. Nico Price getting lit up for the majority of that fight. Then we see Tim Means, overextend a little bit, and Nico Price counter perfectly and get the victory there. But since 2018, he's had wins over Ricky Rainey, Thiago Alves, and then obviously most recently Laureano Staropoli. Staropoli brings like a weird game plan into his fights. He loves to throw spinning shit, loves to throw flying stuff, has an awkward fighting style, but Tim Means did a good job of kind of stifling that as best as possible, landing great shots from the outside, using his teep perfectly. That's one of his best weapons as well. If he's able to maintain distance with that kick, he's able to really let his hands go and implement his game plan. Mike Perry, on the other hand, we know what he's all about. He wants to go out there and throw bungalows and try to knock your head off. But the funny thing is, we haven't seen him getting a victory via finish since he fought Alex Reyes way back in September of 2017. And that, but he knocked down Mickey Gall once in I believe it was the second round. But the only other time he's recorded a knockdown, or at least in recent memory, was that Alex Reyes fight. He did not knock down Ponzinibbio, Griffin, Felder, Donald Cerrone, Cowboy Oliveira, Vicente Luque, Jeff Neal. and he obviously knocks down Mickey Gall. But that Mickey Gall fight was a little bit alerting. We saw Mike Perry go out there and kind of get outstruck. Like I was kind of surprised at the type of striking that we were seeing from Mickey Gall. Beautiful body kicks. Had some decent success from range. Had decent success in terms of trying to stay out of the way of the big shots. Obviously outside of that one knockdown, but that first round looked really good for Mickey Gall, and that's kind of like the stereotypical game plan that you'd see from a Tim Means is kind of playing the counter game. He's going to be on his back foot here. Obviously, Mike Perry will be the one kind of pressing the gas and kind of throw those bombs and hoping to land on Tim Means. And this is a fight where Tim Means has to make sure that he doesn't slip up, doesn't overextend too much, doesn't trade in the fire as much as we've seen him in the past before. Because Mike Perry does have that power, but I'm a little bit questionable of how crazy that power is, considering we haven't really seen him go out there and really finish dudes in a long time. And I rate Tim Means a lot higher than I do Alex Reyes, but the durability has always been a question for Tim Means in his recent career. But if you're talking about skill for skill stacked beside each other, Tim Means absolutely blows Mike Perry out of the water. Mike Perry is a brawler. That's his style. And, kudos to him for kind of recognizing that he, the stand-up was a little bit harder than it should have been against a guy like Mickey Gall. And he started taking this fight to the ground and just did a good job in terms of, keeping top position, landing some good shots from on top, and staying out of any submission attempts from Mickey Gall. My issue, though, with Mickey Gall is it seems like he has cardio issues. He tried making an excuse after that Diego Sanchez fight. We saw it hinder him again here against Mike Perry as well, where, he has, or at least has said that he has solid jiu-jitsu, and we've seen solid jiu-jitsu from him in the past, but we did not see any of that in this fight against Mike Perry, because by the time this fight was, once this fight started taking place majorly on the ground, majorly, for the most part, on the ground. We didn't really see him implement his jiu-jitsu, no real reversals, no real submission attempts, and nothing that was even close to hitting. And going into that fight, I thought that was Mike Perry's Mickey Gall's way to win this fight, is to get this to the ground and really show off his jiu-jitsu, and he was not able to do that. However, I believe that Tim Means is, at this point in his career, he probably has better jiu-jitsu than Mickey Gall, and he might be able to implement it a little bit better than Mickey Gall did. So even if Mike Perry decides to go take this fight to the ground, I don't think he's really in the clear in terms of being able to just lay on top of Tim Means and hoping to just grind out a decision victory like he did against Gall. So I think Perry is in a little bit of trouble here. As long as Tim Means doesn't overextend or really get hurt or anything like that, he could win this fight just from staying at distance. Or even if he wanted to try to take this fight to the ground, he could have some success in terms of landing shots from on top and possibly pulling off a submission of his own. The takedown accuracy for Mike Perry, 46%, not the greatest, but, he's had to deal with some solid takedowns from the past from Santiago Ponzinibbio and Alan Jouban. Most recently, the last person to really take him down has been Santiago Ponzinibbio, which was back in December of 2017. So I'm not sure if the other guys are really so keen on trying to take Mike Perry down anyway. Max Griffin, not really a takedown guy. Paul Felder, not really a takedown guy. Donald Cerrone, we saw him get this fight to the ground. I can't remember exactly how. Actually, it was Mike Perry that actually ended up taking him down. And we saw Cowboy Cerrone pull off a submission there. But Cowboy Oliveira, not really a takedown guy. Vicente Luque likes to keep most fights on the feet. Jeff Neal, obviously we know what his forte is. And then obviously Mickey Gall, we know he wasn't able to get the fight to the ground on his terms, at least. So I do like Tim Means here, but I'm so skeptical. It's going to be such a sweat going out there and trying to put money on Tim Means here. I'm going to need a lot better than plus 120, which is the best line that you can currently get at Pinnacle. Now, if this line starts to reach that plus 150, plus 170 range or something like that, I might have to take a little bit of a shot on Means here, as I don't believe the odds should be that wide. Even plus 155, the opener on Means, I think that was a solid spot if you could have gotten your hands on that. But that did not last for long, and now we have Tim Means at plus 115. So I would sit back and wait. I'm recording this pretty early. I'm recording this on Thursday before fight week, and there's still plenty of time for this fight to, or at least these odds to start to shift, especially once the event before completes. We really see a lot of movement for odds, once people start to really fully shift their focus from one event to the next. So I'll be keeping my eye on that. I do have a notification set on best fight odds for Tim Means at plus 150, as I do feel like that's a good spot for him if you do want to take a play there, because again, skill for skill, Tim Means should have this in the bag, but it's just being able to stay away from those big shots of Mike Perry. And I think, Means would have a better chance. I'd give Means the higher probability of being able to keep Mike Perry on the outside than Mike Perry landing a clean enough shot to put Tim Means out. But again, like I said, the only way I would really take a shot on Tim Means here is if I got solid plus money, and plus 150 is kind of the range that I'm looking for here for Tim Means. So once again, I'll be going with Tim Means to win this fight via decision, as I do believe that Mike Perry is very, very durable. It's been a long time since we've seen him even finished. Well, obviously Jeff Neal actually finished him, but outside of that, like, he hasn't even been finished in the UFC, so that's very impressive. Sorry, I did miss up. Donald Cerrone as well did get him by submission. So I will go with the safe side, as I don't believe that Tim Means will want to really overextend himself unless he goes for a takedown and just really controls Mike Perry from on top. I'm not sure how successful he would be in that, but I do believe that we'll see Means kind of put together a picture perfect performance outside of hopefully not getting rocked or anything like that. But yeah, I'm taking Tim Means to win this fight via decision. Next up, we got the co-main event, where we have the first of two title fights for UFC 255, and we have the women's flyweight great GOAT, if you want to call it, Valentina Shevchenko going up against Jennifer Maia, and we got, as you expected, super chalky odds on my girl Jennifer Maia. Right now, the line is sitting at minus 1250 and plus 800 for Jennifer Maia. And the fight doesn't go to decision is minus 210, which absolutely makes sense. So let's start off with Valentina Shevchenko. This breakdown is going to be short and sweet. There's no need to get into some crazy long-winded answer to tell you that Valentina Shevchenko is going to go out there and absolutely obliterate Jennifer Maia. We know Valentina Shevchenko. We know what she's all about. And in her last last 5 fights alone, she's gone out there and finished 3 of those five opponents. The only 2 that she wasn't able to put away, Joanna Jacek and then Liz Carmouche, who's very durable herself. But in that time, she's been able to dispose of Priscilla Cachoeira, Jessica Ai, and Katlyn Chookagian. And now here she is against Jennifer Maia, who almost like stumbled upon a title shot here. So the title shot was originally supposed to go to Joanne Calderwood back in June, but that was pre-COVID plans. And now COVID obviously fucked that up. Joanne Calderwood wanted to stay active. She takes a fight against Jennifer Maia, rolls the dice on herself, and she ends up getting tapped to an armbar from Jennifer Maia. So Shevchenko now, she has another, lamb being brought to the slaughter, another name to add to her belt, another jewel to add to that belt as well, whatever the hell they do with that new UFC belt. But what else are they supposed to do? Like, there isn't really much else out there for her in this flyweight division. I just want to pull it up real quick to see. I'll leave that for the back end of this breakdown. So we know Shevchenko. She's fast. She's great with her jiu-jitsu. Her striking is on point. She doesn't really. Like, her movement is weird. It's more static than anything, in terms of like she bounces around kind of right in front of her opponent and then gets just out of the way of most of her opponent's strikes. But she's close enough to her opponents that when she wants to throw, she may not be able to reach with that 1-2, but she's always going to hit you with a leg kick that's probably coming as the third strike, which she was able to do, quite consistently against Katlyn Chookagian before the fight started getting dragged to the ground. That was a weird fight where Chookagian was just more than happy to engage in the ground. Like the exchange that led to the finish there, she right before actually getting taken down, she almost like pulled guard. It was so weird. Like, she was just accepting of getting taken down. She got taken down, and then Shevchenko like pretty much immediately got into the crucifix position and started raining down shots, and that was pretty much the beginning of the end there for Katlyn Chookagian. But Shevchenko can pretty much do it anywhere she wants. Whether it's on the ground, whether it's on the feet, she's going out there and outstriking Holly Holm in a 5-round fight. She's going out there and, out jiu-jitsuing Katlyn Chookagian, who a lot of people, they kind of thought that was her, little rabbit in the hat, where she was just going to pull it on and be like, hey, I'm not just a striker. I can go out there and use my submissions. And that was something a lot of people were hammering during that fight week for Katlyn. But Shevchenko goes out there and just obliterates her on the ground too. There's no facet that Shevchenko has pretty much been beaten in, other than her fights against Amanda Nunes. that third fight, even though she's 0-2 to Nunes, those two fights were really fucking close that you could absolutely make a case for Shevchenko for winning those fights. So if we do stumble upon a third fight, I'd be totally on board for that, because she's going to continue to go out there and just absolutely bust some of these girls like Jennifer Maia. So let's not forget, Jennifer Maia, 2 fights ago, she lost a decision to Katlyn Chookagian because she wasn't able to track her down. Katlyn Chookagian did a really good job of keeping her feet moving, landing her strikes from distance, and then getting out of the way. And Jennifer Maia was absolutely dumbfounded in terms of what she could do. Mainly a Muay Thai fighter coming from the shoot to box camp, the famed shoot to box camp that people love talking about. That's where Jennifer Maia, kind of paid her dues. And then she became a black belt in jiu-jitsu as well, which she was able to show off in that fight against Joanne Calderwood. If you guys remember my breakdown of that Jennifer Maia fight with Joanne Calderwood, I was very much underrating the ground game of Jennifer Maia. Like the times that we have seen her on the ground in her past fights, most notably the Alexis Davis fight, we saw her struggle to get back to her feet. We saw her struggle to implement her jiu-jitsu. So for her to go out and pull a armbar against Joanne Calderwood kind of was like a oh shit kind of moment for us here. I mean, Joanne Calderwood, a lot of people are saying there's a lot of steam on her just because of the wins that she was able to accrue going into that Jennifer Maia fight that essentially got her a title shot. But let's look at those fights that got her that title shot. So the title, the fight that got her, she was 1-1. She Joanne Calderwood herself lost to Katlyn Chookagian, which is fucking hilarious that Katlyn Chookagian is the one beating all these girls pretty much right before they get a win to get a title shot at Valentina Shevchenko. So, Joanne Calderwood, her last 4 fights before Jennifer Maia, beats Kalindra Faria via triangle armbar, beats Ariane Lipski via decision, loses to Katlyn Chookagian, so Chookagian gets the title shot right after that, and then Joanne Calderwood goes out there and split decisions Angela Lee in a very, very, very close fight, and then she gets a title shot, or was scheduled to get a title shot. Unfortunately for her, she goes in there, like I said, gambles, rolls the dice against Jennifer Maia, and gets armbar. So it's kind of just like, okay, Joanne Calderwood really isn't that great, and a girl like Jennifer Maia could absolutely beat her. And let's not forget that the odds pretty much going into that fight were plus 145 for Jennifer Maia. So there was a lot of love on Joanne Calderwood there. But Jennifer Maia, she's beaten every aspect here. I don't see how in any way that she's going to beat Valentina Shevchenko. Shevchenko is just built differently. Like if you physically look at her compared to every other 125er out there, she looks like a fighter. Like she looks like the prime example of a girl that's going to go out there and beat your ass, and that's exactly what she does to pretty much 99% of the opponents she goes out there and fights. It's ridiculous. Like it's not even fair. She has a cheat code as to why she's able to go out there and just murk some of these girls the way she is. So the question more so is for these Shevchenko fights, is she going to win by decision or is she going to win inside the distance? Because that's pretty much the only the only competitive odds that you'll normally get on these Shevchenko fights. So I do think that she'll go out there and finish Jennifer Maia. Like the one fight that I did call her recently to win via decision, she ended up winning by decision, which was the Liz Carmouche fight, who again is quite durable and does a good job of not getting finished. Jessica I definitely knew that she was going to go out there and knock her out, knock her silly. Like she was able to just set up traps that eventually led to that head kick knockout, which is one of the greatest knockouts of all time. A lot of people thought that Shevchenko was going to go in there and decision her. I'm like, just look at all the mistakes that Jessica I makes. Look how slow she is. Look at how, she's quite repetitive in her combinations. Valentina is going to easily pick up on those combinations and then find a perfect counter, and that's exactly what she did. Or even just set traps for Jessica, and that's exactly what she did. Jennifer Maia, to me, seems like a girl that Valentina can go out there and set traps against. And I'm fully expecting Shevchenko to go out there and finish her. I don't know if it's going to be a submission, but I could absolutely see it being a knockout on the feet. I do believe that the majority of this fight will be contested on the feet, but Shevchenko could absolutely go John Jones on the shit and, be like that champion that just goes out there and beats opponents at their own game. So whether it's the Muay Thai, whether it's the Jiu-Jitsu, whatever it is, Shevchenko's going to do her thing and get the finish. So I'm going to say second or third round finish for Shevchenko after she really starts to feel this fight out, set up those traps, whatever it is. But I truly like Shevchenko to go out there and ragdoll Jennifer Maia. But in terms of worthy contenders for Shevchenko, God damn. So Jessica Andrade goes out there, finishes Katlyn Chookagian. and now finds herself as the number one or the number one, at least in the UFC ranking. So maybe that's the next person after Jennifer Maia for Valentina Shevchenko in terms of like proper, proper justification for getting a title shot. I think Jessica Andrade should have to go out there and beat at least one more opponent, but I don't think they're gonna be doing that. Cynthia Calvillo is fighting Katlyn Chookagian next, so that could potentially produce, if Calvillo wins, she could potentially be a number one contender. But yeah, there's nobody really on the come up right now that has me thinking, okay, this girl should be the one to go out there and dethrone Valentina Shevchenko. Yeah, this list is tough. Viviane Araujo still has a little bit of work to do. Macy Barber definitely still has work to do. Yeah, Jessica Andrade is probably the funnest fight that we could potentially make for Shevchenko if she's able to get by Maia, which she absolutely will. And I'd be down for that. Even if it's just off that one win over Chookagian, I'm absolutely down with that. All right, so final prediction on this fight before I start rambling on. I told you this was going to be short and sweet, but I love breaking down Shevchenko. I love talking about how great she is because she is absolutely great. She's definitely one of the GOATs. And it's going to be really, really hard to see anybody go out there and actually beat this woman unless her name is Amanda Nunes, you know what I mean? So I'll go with Shevchenko. I'm going to go within the distance, parlaying her at minus 1250 as little to no value. So I don't think anybody should be doing that. I think the line, if your bookies allow it, the line that you want to be parlaying is Shevchenko to win inside the distance. I'm interested to see where actually the over under drops at. Like if it's 3.5 or 4.5, I'd absolutely take the under. But if it's 2.5 or 1.5, then I'm just I'd rather just go with Shevchenko inside the distance. So those are the two plays, or most the plays that I like the most. We don't have odds on them yet. The only odds we do have that would give us an indication of what it would potentially look like is the fight doesn't go to decision, which is minus 210, which leads me to believe that Shevchenko inside the distance, maybe opening, would be about minus 150, minus 160. So yeah, just keep your eye out for that whenever that drops. All right, final prediction, Valentina Shevchenko via second or third round KO. For the main event, we got the flyweight title on the line. We got the returning champion Deiveson Figueiredo versus Alex Perez. We got minus 300 on the champ and plus 250 on the challenger here. And I personally think that line's a little bit too wide. And I think it has to do a lot with a little bit of recency bias, and that's something you guys hear me talk about a lot, when I break down some of these fights. And I'm not trying to shit on Deiveson's performances against Joe Benavidez, but yeah, like the way he was making them look so easy and how he was just absolutely ragdolling Joseph Benavidez, and they're absolutely is pushing the line to as far as it is. A lot of people aren't one, too familiar with Alex Perez, and two, they don't believe that he possesses the skills that are required to beat a guy like Alex Perez. So let's go back and look at what has allowed Alex Perez to come back from that loss to Joseph Benavidez back in 2018 to now fighting for this title. He goes out there, beats Mark De La Rosa, pretty much grinds him out, takes him into Mark De La Rosa's world, which is the grappling and jiu-jitsu realm, and out-grapples him. The Jordan Espinosa fight, beautiful arm triangle choke from half guard from the opposite side of the choke, which is very, very impressive. You have to get a lot of torque on that, a lot of squeeze on that to be able to pull that off. And it just goes to show the fact that Jordan Espinosa didn't even tap to that. He had no idea that it had as much effect as it did. And Perez had the amount of squeeze that he actually did. So that was unfortunate. And then the Jussier Formiga fight, absolutely rushes him and wrecks him in that first round with just leg kicks, calf kicks specifically. And if a lot of people remember, that's the only L on Deiveson's record is to Jussier Formiga. And obviously those fights went completely different. We saw Formiga go out there in the first 2 rounds against Deiveson and take him down and control him from on top. And then that third round, it seemed like he had a little bit of issues trying to control Deiveson. He was running away from him a lot, couldn't really even get him down either. But he was still able to secure the first 2 rounds, which gave him the victory there. But in this fight with Alex Perez, Perez just laid on that leg kick from the beginning, and it just paid off dividends. And Formiga couldn't handle it after the 4-minute mark into that first round. So big shout out to Alex Perez for actually getting Jussier Formiga out of there, which is a really, really tough task to do. And now here he is, Alex Perez fighting Deiveson Figueiredo for the title, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it because I think he has a really good shot here. So Alex Perez, solid wrestling. Very much improved striking too. We definitely saw that, in effect against Jose Torres, where you just absolutely lit him up for 3.5 minutes before finally putting him out. But he has great hands. I'd obviously give the striking advantage here to Deiveson, but it's gonna be the effectiveness of the calf kicks, in my opinion, from Perez that would dictate the result of this fight. If he's able to go out there and actually attack that leg consistently and avoiding the counters that are coming back his way, because that right straight from Deiveson Figueiredo is a freaking piston that has put plenty of guys on their butts. But I feel like Perez has a good shot of avoiding those shots, getting his damage off, and then mixing in takedowns too, because that's something that's going to be important for him here. One thing that Deiveson does very, very well, and he's actually caught Tim Elliott with it, is his guillotine chokes when guys are going for takedowns. He pretty much went for it every single time Jussier Formiga took him down, and he's gone for it pretty much anytime anybody's taken him down, especially the Jared Brooks fight, if that's something that if you guys want to go back and see. That was a fight where we saw Brooks take him down time and time and time again, and Deiveson still came out with a victory there, and that one was a highly contested decision. A lot of people thought that the second round could have gone to Jared Brooks, who probably would have given him the fight there. But that fight was a long time ago. That was over 6 years, or not 6 years ago. What am I talking about? That was over 4 or 3 years ago. Yeah, just about 3 years ago. And since that, Deiveson's gone 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-1 in that amount of time en route to this title shot now. So I'm impressed with Deiveson. I love his striking. The guy has a ton of power. Even when he goes for takedowns and starts, dishing out his damage from on top, he's a very scary individual. But my issue here is, how was Jussier Formiga able to get him down so easily? Jared Brooks was more so strength, kind of picking him up, body slamming him, whatever it took to get Deiveson down. But he didn't really do a good job of keeping him down, whereas Jussier Formiga did a lot better job. I feel like Perez will be able to get him down. I feel like he'll be able to time the takedowns properly. Especially with him going out there and doing work on the feet as well. That should definitely allow him to open up his wrestling game too. Plus 250 is a little bit crazy in my opinion. I like those odds for Alex Perez, and I think it's only going to get worse too. I think a lot of people are drinking that juice on Figueiredo and think that he's completely unstoppable, and I kind of believe that to a certain extent, but if you're going to give me crazy numbers on guys who I believe are viable contenders, I will fade Deiveson Figueiredo. So I do like Perez here, and I do think he has the chops to go out there and pull off the upset. He's looked completely unbeatable, and people are going to throw the whole MMA math thing there and be like, oh, look, Benavidez beat Perez, but he got absolutely murked by Figueiredo. Well, Perez murked Formiga, and we saw him go out there and beat Figueiredo. So kind of a counterpoint right there. But also one thing that I wanted to touch on here, there was one fight specifically for Perez that I wanted to talk about. Why can't I pull it up? Goddamn. Yeah, so even Pantoja had some issues getting Figueiredo down, so that was interesting. But I like the work that Perez has been able to put together, and I feel like he had a solid run before even coming to the UFC. And going into that Contender Series fight, he was 17-4. He's been fighting professionally since 2011. I think Figueiredo is roughly around there too, 2012. I like Perez here. I like his ability to mix it up. I like the improvements that he's making on the feet, especially if he's able to go out there and unleash those calf kicks. I think that's going to give Figueiredo some issues here. But it's the counters that I'm worried about for Perez here. If he gets countered consistently, gets dropped, then it's going to be some issues. Oh yeah, the one thing that I did want to talk about was Perez against Benavidez. It was so weird that first instance where Benavidez first stopped him, where Yves Levine really fucked up and kind of semi-stopped the fight, but didn't stop the fight. Nothing looked to really rock or drop Perez. He kind of just fell over when they collided, and then we saw Joseph Benavidez go out there and just go crazy with these hammer fists, and that could have easily stopped the fight, which it should have. And then we saw, I think Perez really was wearing the damage from that ground and pound, which led to the ultimate finish for Benavidez there. But I feel like that's, if anything, that's only made Alex Perez stronger. He's tasted that defeat in the UFC now. and he's come back look much, much better. The best we've seen of him, obviously, is that Juicy Formiga fight. So I'm hoping he's going to be able to go out there and replicate that type of performance. Just lay on the leg kicks right away, be wary of the counters coming back to you, and then when you feel like you have Formiga really into the striking stance, switch it up. Let's go for a takedown, tuck in that chin, because obviously Figueiredo is going to be pulling guillotine, and then let's just try to do a good job of trying to keep Figueiredo down. So I'm going to go with the juicy underdog, I should say, here at plus 250, maybe even better by the time I get around to actually placing the bet here. But I do like Perez. I think he has the chops to get it done, and this number is a little bit crazy. I like Figueiredo, and a part of me is kind of pulling for him here to go out there and be that that champion that flyweight has needed, that dominant champion that flyweight has needed. Not just dominant in the way that Mighty Mouse was, but dominant in the way that knocking dudes out, submitting dudes, whatever it is, just bringing that God of War nickname to life. So I am half of me is pulling for Figueiredo here, but if you're giving me plus 250 on a guy, in my opinion, that has all the chops to go out there and beat a guy like Figueiredo, I'm going with the proper odds here. So I'm going with Alex Perez to win this fight via maybe late stoppage or submission. That's another issue here, though, that's kind of unknown, is Perez's gas tank, and even Figueiredo's gas tank. People have always kind of banged on him for potentially having cardio issues, but we never really see him go those 3, 4, 5 rounds. This is going to be, the first time he could potentially be pushed to 5 rounds. Same with Perez. So we'll see if he's able to keep up that type of output, that type of game plan where he's switching it from grappling to striking, and then obviously dealing with the power that's coming back to him from Figueiredo. And I don't think that Figueiredo is a complete wild man on the feet just looking for the knockout. I believe he's calculated with his approach, and he waits for the proper times to counter. So Perez is going to have to be very, very much ready for that. I do like him over down there at Oyama's gym, training with Chito Vera, and I just love the head coach over there because he's a very knowledgeable guy. So I feel like they'll be able to drop a perfect game plan to go out there and implement against a guy like Figueiredo. So I'm going with Alex Perez once and for all. I don't know if it'll be late submission or a decision, but I do like Perez here to win this fight via submission. Or sorry, you know what? Let's go with decision. I'm going to say Alex Perez via decision. And those are the bets. I appreciate you guys checking out the podcast. As always, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and then hit up the Patreon as well. Once again, that is in the description below. You guys can hit the Patreon link and sign up there. I appreciate you guys watching. As always, I will be back on Friday with the Odds crew doing our regular final weigh-in stream. Shout out to everybody that's been hopping on that. That's been so much fun. I love those guys over there. And then also on fight day at 1 p.m. Eastern, every fight day, I do my live stream, my final thoughts personally, where I just address everybody's questions, comments, and concerns in the live chat. And we get out our final thoughts before the fights go down. So make sure you guys check me out for that. All right. I'll see you guys on Friday. Good luck on your bets this weekend. And let's fucking get this money.